pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we have one person signed up for public comment, Melinda Rossman.
Thank you. Of course. Hello, Board of Education and audience. Thank you for letting me speak here today. And I wasn't able to come to the last meeting prior to the break, but I really am so excited that you voted 3-2 to remove the mask mandate within the district. Really appreciative. Thousands of people are appreciative. I respect everyone's First Amendment right. I respect your view. I respect my view. I'm an educator. I research. I study. I find the truth. And then I make decisions based on truth. There's a lot of misinformation right now, so I brought you a present tonight. I was gifted the most amazing video in the last year. Dr. Ryan Cole was invited to speak to the Idaho State Legislature and give them a COVID update in March 2021. Let me say it again, Dr. Ryan Cole, COVID update to the Idaho State Legislature. That is the most awesome video, full of truth, by a well-respected, renowned physician. And it's the most powerful video I have watched. I highly recommend it. I'm going to memorize it. And it's going to become my truth Bible for the next, any conversation I have around this issue we're having to face in the world today. And then there's another advocate for the human person, human being, species. It's a human rights attorney, federal level human rights attorney named Lee Dundas, L-E-I-G-H-D-U-N-D-A-S. Lee Dundas is a human rights attorney out of Orange County, Orange County, California. She's fighting for every one of us. If you don't know that, she's fighting for every one of us. She's right now fighting for school children in Orange County. And you should research what Lee Dundas is up to. I get personal emails from her since all of this craziness. I hooked up with her about 8 months ago. We communicate personally. She just sent me an update. I can't give you the information yet because I would not paraphrase it properly. But research who Lee Dundas is and you'll find some other amazing truth about it. A person that is advocating for all of us to find the truth and keep us moving forward as a nation. I love working in this school district. I love working with our families. But I'm representing our entire nation right now. When I'm speaking here, it's my opportunity to let you know I'm passionate about every one of us having a quality life and moving forward in a powerful America, and that our school children are safe and in a proper educated environment with loving educators. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, before we go on to Washington, I just wanted to let the board know and everyone here that Tom, if you haven't noticed, Superintendent Albertson would be right here. He is recovering from a planned surgery and is not present at tonight's meeting, but he is doing well and has already spoken with the office, and so he's doing well and misses all of us, I'm sure.
I'm sure he does.
So with that, we will go on. We have a presentation from Tasha Hamer for Washington Elementary. Hello.
Thanks. So I'm Tasha Hamer. I'm the principal of Washington Elementary, if you don't know me. And I want to start off with thanking the board for the decision to keep kids in school and school open. We are so grateful that we have kids 5 days a week in person. Unbelievably grateful. Thank you. So just a little bit of what's been going on at Washington. One silver lining about this year is the additional time that we have as a staff to meet collaboratively as PLCs. We're able to meet once a week, and in the past we haven't. A PLC is a professional learning community, and we work under these 4 questions up here, if you can see them. So we work under what do we want kids to know? How do we know that they know it? What do we do for those who do? And what do we do for those who don't? Some work that we have done at Washington as a PLC is bulleted below. But as a staff, they wanted, my staff, Washington teachers, wanted to do a book study on better learning through structured teaching. All of staff members, K through 6, read the book and collaborated around it, and it ties really well to the 7 elements of effective instruction, and we work around that as a staff, well, as a district in general. MTSS is one thing that we look at as a PLC, more so in what do we do for kids that aren't quite getting it, but also the other end of things. So I personally this week just started teaching an advanced math group. Gary, you probably like that, with some 4th grade learners, just because we had these kids that were excelling and we needed to do something with them. We as a school purchased IXL for grades 3 through 6 to target our low math data strands. And we are focusing on some low data strands that have come up just through kind of that COVID gap. So we had 2nd graders that did not know how to tell time. Well, they went to distant learning in 1st grade. I have a 1st grade teacher here, and they learned to tell time in the spring in 1st grade. So some areas we just need to spend the extra time. Here's a little highlight of some mid-year data. So in the winter, we look at grades K through 6 and see how we're doing. This is the iStation data. A lot of you are familiar with this. One celebration is in September. Green is good. Green is good. So in September we are 65% in green, tier 1, and then in January we jumped up to 79%, which is a great celebration. Another celebration for Washington is, here's our state average. Once again, green is good. Our district average in Washington, so we really like to see this little bit of red here, not a lot of red. That's a celebration because we were really concerned about our kindergarten and 1st grade learners, because they really start taking off in reading in the spring, and they were learning at home last spring. So this is another thank you for having kids in school. In grades 2 through 6, we take the MAP assessment by NWEA. This year, it gave Washington some feedback on where we need to focus, and that was in math. In ELA, our data says that 63% of our kiddos are going to be proficient on the ISAT. We usually shoot for 72 to 75 at Washington for ELA, so we'll take it, we'll work with it. In math, we have projected proficiency of 40%, and as a staff, we did not like that. So immediately, we decided what we were going to do to support that low data, and through our PLC process. One thing is, and I'm sure you've heard about it from other board presentations, but the ISAT interim blocks basically gives you the questions on how they're going to look when they see them on the ISAT. So if teachers are teaching geometry in class and they took the test and kids seem to be doing well, then we are exposing kids to what that standard would look like on the ISAT. So it's that familiarity piece when they sit down to take the ISAT. We purchased IXL. We had a lovely volunteer that donated some money to our school, and we decided the best use for that money is to purchase an online math program. And what teachers can do is they can tie it directly to the standards of where kiddos are. So based on their map data, if a kiddo is low in geometry, they can pick the standards where they're struggling, and kids can work at their instructional level. So teachers are using it for not only interventions, but extensions and just practice in general. Standard-based grading will support our math data, as well as just intervention and extension groups.
Tasha, before you go on, you identify, I know the green, what's the
So green is
Yellow,
good
blue.
and blue is good,
Okay.
and we don't really want to be playing in the yellow and red.
I couldn't identify what the blue represented, so.
So blue would be your advanced,
Okay.
green is proficient, basic is yellow,
Yeah,
red is
basic and
below
then
basic.
basic, yeah.
So the numbers you're giving us are the sum of the green and the blue?
Yes.
Yes.
She said 63%. I did the math there.
I talk fast, I should have slowed down a little bit. And this is just what the map data is saying that
Right.
our projected proficiency is. We're gonna be higher than that.
Wait, do they
Okay.
base, oh, sorry, do they base that on,
We actually we don't do an
Sorry.
interaction with it. No, that's
I'll
okay.
talk to you.
You can grab her after.
I'll
Okay.
talk to you home. Some things that make Washington School unique. We have a dedicated, supportive, innovative, and collaborative staff. Our PTA is amazing. So these are some pictures of things that PTAs help fund, busing to go on a field trip. These third graders all did an Iditarod study, and they have their own book that will stay with that classroom as they move forward. And it was pajama day this day.
I
so
can
if you're
tell.
wondering. We are a neighborhood school, and we just have a neighborhood feel. So people look after each other. Kids are on the playground after school. I have to send them home to go check in with mom and dad, and then say they can come back to play. Even this year, with parents not being in the building, we have a strong parent involvement. We are embarking on looking at outdoor education, and I'll explain more of that in my next slide. And we still do design for change at Washington Elementary, but just towed it because of the amount of time by the early release of 1 o'clock. One wonderful thing that has happened this last year is, and this is photo credit from Rachel's son from the Daily Bee. Our kiddos are going to the woods after school to Pine Street Woods with Connexu Land Trust 3 days a week for outdoor education or an outdoor school program. So first grade and second grade go on Monday, third and fourth on Tuesday, fifth and sixth on Wednesday. We'd like to expand that program, but right now it's an opportunity for kids to have an after-school activity that's, different than what they normally have. One thing, last spring during COVID shutdown, I started exploring the idea of outdoor ed with Washington teachers, just not knowing what next year would look like, and thinking in the lens of, well, if we're outside, maybe we could be in person, not knowing we would go in person. And teachers, all Washington staff was on board with the idea of implementing outdoor education at our school, but really like the idea of having an expert instructor instructing kids and us learning from them and tying it to math or science standards. So then this provided a platform and a collaboration that I started with University of Idaho and Connexu Land Trust, and Elizabeth Wargo, who's a researcher and professor at University of Idaho, just finished writing a large grant to the Spencer Foundation that we are hoping to secure funding to implement outdoor ed at Washington next year. We will know this summer if we get the grant. So exciting, who knows if we'll get it, but another lovely thing that came from this collaboration and this partnership with the University of Idaho and Connexu Land Trust is our students, our 5th grade students, got to work collaboratively with Colorado College, and they worked with a architectural and design class where the students worked with our kids. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is college kids on the screen in a Zoom meeting with our 5th graders. So they met with our 5th graders and said, what would you like an outdoor classroom to look like? And I mean, the kids had grand ideas. And then they met with myself and then some members of the community, and then the college students created an outdoor classroom classroom and presented it to our students. And so this is an example of an outdoor classroom that the college kids designed. This is the front of Washington Elementary, so here's the building, and this is the existing parking lot, and this would be the design for an outdoor learning space. We don't know what is going to happen with it, but the idea is maybe even Colorado College writing grants to secure funding for an actual outdoor learning space for the whole school to use. And this spring, it's spring, so coming soon, we are going to work with another class at Colorado College on a project called Rewilding Our Playground. So we're not sure what that will look like, but just the collaborative work of students working with college students is a learning experience, even if there is no further outcome. So that is it. Do you have any questions?
I had a question. What time do the kids go up to, I guess it's Pine Street Woods? they
Pine
go-
Street Woods,
You said after school?
after school, and we lucked out at Washington. I know in the past they worked with the after-school program, but this year with busing and COVID, we have spot for 5 to 10 kids, depending on the day, to ride an existing route to Pine Street Woods. So any kid that lives on that route, we send. And then we have parents that are helping us and driving kids to Pine Street Woods on their own. But 1 o'clock, so they hop on the bus at the end of the day, and then Connexu Land Trust is paying for the bus to bring the kids back to school, and they get back to school at 4 o'clock.
And do they have a guide up there?
Yes, they have
for
2
the children?
teachers. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of Mr. Dave. That's
See in the
Mr.
picture,
Dave. Everybody does, and then, I just went blank on the lady who's working
Miss
with
Chloe.
it. Chloe, Miss Chloe.
Good.
And they're wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, we had some changes this week in our COVID protocol. Can you describe, what it is in your school right now?
So at the elementary school, the only thing that's changed is that as kids that are in transition, they're not wearing face coverings. But other than that, it's been pretty much the same. So we have more kids coming in the door in the morning without a face covering on, but they're in the hall for less than a minute. So it's not a huge change at the elementary level.
Are you still socially distancing your desks and using the
We have a
plexiglass
lot,
dividers?
we have a lot of tables at Washington Elementary, so most of our classrooms have tables. So they were in groups of 4 to begin with. And some of the older students are still wanting the plexiglass dividers, but most of the kids were very happy to see them go.
So they went, and the masks, at least outside the
Based on parent
classroom,
choice,
are
yep.
optional.
Yep.
Other than that, all the protocol is still.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for presenting.
Yeah.
Yes. First item for board discussion is the sale of real property that actually is along that edge of the south side of the spare lot at Washington. So there was quite a bit of content in your packet. I'm hoping everybody looked through that thoroughly. And I will ask our clerk to summarize.
Yes, so that, all the information that was in your packet, just for the record, was gathered from the city of Sandpoint, along with the video that was sent to you of the city of Sandpoint City Council meeting of the hearing and request for variance. I also just received, as of yesterday, another document from, I believe, Amanda Wilson with the City of Sandpoint that I sent you as well regarding 516 Lavina Avenue and the amount of remaining required width. so that they would come into compliance. There were also pictures from the Bonner County GIS with the dimensions of the lot within the packet also. These were all the documents that we, when I say we've gathered, Director of Facilities, Matt Deal is here, and he worked with me in gathering this information.
Okay.
Can I have a?
So, go ahead.
Well, I was just, my first comment is, I certainly appreciate the information that was compiled. It was quite thorough, and I know more about this property than I know about my own property. And I know it was a big effort, and, but anyway, thank you, Kelly, for putting that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very sensitive.
A lot of paperwork. Go ahead, Chairman. Trustee Williams.
Promotion. In looking through what we got from the city, well, I think there's two important things here. One, what we recently received is a different size, a chunk of, strip of land. According to the city, it's 7.43 feet that would need to be deeded to these folks in order to come into compliance. But one of the other things that I would like to discuss as a board, and it's something that is a hang up in my mind here. They got a building permit based on a set of plans. They were then told by the city that those plans were not in compliance, so they changed the plans to come into compliance. One of the things that was, and so there was some square footage of the actual ADU and detached garage that changed, but one of the things that changed was the roof. Going from a solid roof on part of the porch to a trellis roof. Then they were informed. Then the contractor built the house, had it all framed out to be solid roof. The city came out and said, hey, you can't do that. That's not what was approved. And then they did it anyways. And so that's something I'm struggling with. And I know that this is unfortunate, but what I keep getting hung up on is the code is what the code is, and it seems unfair to me to make an exception, or I guess we're not making, no exception would be made, but we then, if we were to decide as a board to divest of this strip of property, then that, potentially hinders a future board or, Washington Elementary, should they want to do something with that, including but not limited to, down the road, if the best move there is that that property is sold, now the school district doesn't own a standard lot that could be sold. Not to say that that would be.
And Chair Lewis, if I could.
There is
for
some
a point-
detail on that, yes. Go ahead.
So for a point of reference, I did in your packet as well include Idaho code.
Right.
You as a board are bound by that code. The
Right.
sale of school district property must follow that code.
Yep.
You would be required to hire a licensed in Idaho appraiser and get it appraised, and then it must go to bid.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, the problem that I have with it comes down to the code. When I read the code, we don't have the authority to sell this, because it specifically says, right at the beginning of the statute, about, as far as selling or buying, necessary for school purposes or for the operation of the district. And as much as I would like to do this as far as the owners of the property, and even though they made offers to use that property in a positive way, possibly, at least in the near future, I still don't think this is a necessity for the purpose of our school district. And that's what it says in there. So I question, and of course the statutes are vague enough so you can probably interpret it any way, but the way I interpret it is that it would have to benefit the school, it'd have to be necessary to benefit the school to sell them property. It's the same way as far as buying property. So in my opinion, the way I read this, it doesn't, the code prevents us from selling.
Chair Lewis, I think that you could probably make the argument that any income coming into the district from the sale of real property could be a benefit to the district. But I agree.
But it's not necessary.
It's not necessary. No, it's certainly not necessary. Because at some point in time, there likely will be, district-owned property that needs to be sold for one reason or another.
School districts sell property all the time.
Well, one of the documents that our clerk provided is page 5 in your packet, and it references the lot size.
Oh, yeah.
That sale of property would reduce the size to below the 50-foot minimum of residential single-family zoning. And I don't know if,
That's,
Matt, if you have anything to add to that conversation, but never mind, Matt.
you can.
Go ahead, trustee. I'm just, that was one of the documents and I wanted to reference that. Go ahead.
You can have less than 50-foot frontage and still be considered a legal lot in town, because there are infill lots that are 25 feet wide. So there are exceptions to that rule. This is from a development standpoint. So there are circumstances where you can have less than a 50-foot wide lot, but you certainly don't want to pigeonhole yourself into that. So
Sure, I see what you're
yeah.
saying. It
So
reduces your options,
It
but
does.
it's not good.
The playground, how is that platted? Is that platted as one piece of property, or is that platted as lots?
well,
The playground is separate from this empty lot across the street, right?
I'm talking about the
No,
soccer field,
it's
the
platted.
the property in question.
Yeah.
it's platted, and they are, like most plats in town, they are typically 25 by 142. Some are 50 by 142, but it is a part of the original. It's South Main McKinney Wilson, the second edition.
So if we sold 7 feet off of that most southerly lot,
Yep.
would that leave, would the remaining lot still be developable?
No, without a variance.
Not without a variance.
Now, it depends on what type of development you're talking about. If you're talking about a
I'm
single
talking
family lot.
I'm talking about doing like what the Mormon church did when they tore it down and they subdivided it, Would that property qualify?
If you subdivided it, you would have one 25-foot and one.
Well, you would end up with it may not be a substandard lot. The standard lot size for a buildable minimum in the city of Sandpoint, it's not an infill lot, is 5,000 square feet. So I would have to do the math on whatever that is, but,
Right.
so it doesn't necessarily mean that what's left there could not be developable in the future, but that may or may not include a replat, a whole bunch of things, hypotheticals it doesn't make sense to get into. But I think the important thing to remember is there's always exceptions to the rule, but how does that benefit? I don't know that it's a great idea to go down that road and tie the hands of a future or school district or Washington school.
What if the sellers, the buyers in this case, would sign an easement, giving the school district, in
Full use of
perpetuity,
that.
access to that piece of property?
Access is one thing. Ownership and use is another. I mean, certainly.
Well, we couldn't own it because
Exactly.
they would have
They
to own
would have
it in
to-
order to satisfy
Absolutely.
the requirement with the city.
Yeah.
But they could grant the school district an easement to use it.
Absolutely. Yep. That,
We'd have to be, that opens up the whole other issue of, are we, what would we be doing with kids on that lot that isn't school property, insurance-wise?
Same thing they're doing
monitoring
now.
wise,
But
and
we
it
own
just
it
opens
now.
up all that conversation.
Yeah.
No, it's a little
The
different.
School
It's
district
property.
leases property, other places in the district that we use as playgrounds. Sagal's one place I can remember, I know of.
Yeah. Proposing the lease back on our own property.
Yeah,
I don't think the city would buy it, though, the city planning, if you know, if they don't own the property, I don't think they're gonna say it needs to be.
no,
Yeah, so
there,
they gotta
I think
own the
there's no
property.
question that the city is requiring
Yeah.
these guys to own the property in order to meet the lot coverage minimums, or maximums. But,
They're the ones that need to give the variance.
right,
I have-
this is not,
We said that before,
yeah.
but.
I have, just concerns myself on the information that came out at which the homeowners had shared with me the day before our clerk got it, that, that the variance is not 40 inches. It's now, in order to come into compliance, it's 7.5 feet. Did you have any thoughts or questions about that?
I mean, it's pretty strict.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
It
bigger
is
than-
what it is. And again, the hang up I have on this is that, to me, it seems like it was very clear what was to be done. They chose to do something else. Even after the contractor said that he could undo what was done. But they didn't do that. And this is not, I'm not trying to come down on anybody. I think it's,
So they had notice.
yes, multiple times,
Did you,
according to the city. Now, this is, I'm taking this all from the City Planning and Zoning Commission documents and transcripts that we got. But on more than one occasion, communication was had between the property owners and the contractor, which,
the one statement, if you remember, on page 10 of your packet, Gary, is that, I think Lonnie is referencing, is on approximately October 2nd, 2020, the city identified that the entire court had been constructed with a roof and was not in conformance with the approved plans and issued building permit. The city brought this to the contractor's attention, who conveyed a willingness to correct the issue. The city followed up by phone with the owner on October 7th, and that is all part of this timeline of events that was also in the packet. The applicant indicated a desire to leave it as constructed and applied for a current variant request. Absent a formal and written policy to disregard, the city accepted the application, but then later didn't approve it.
So that's now gone through the whole process in the city, all the way to the city council, and they've denied it.
yep,
Yes, which is part of this timeline.
which I understand and I get the city's position. The code is the code. And that's the city's position on this is you applied for a building permit. We told you what you could or couldn't do. You changed your plans to fit, then you did it anyways. Now you have to live with the consequences. So rather than fixing it, they went the variance route, which is fine. That is 100% their choice to do so, but it didn't go their way, and I don't think that is in the best interest of the school district to divest property that we may or may not need at some point someday for whatever the future of Washington School is.
I will add to that, the facts appear one way. I know in discussion with the property owners early on in this conversation, they had indicated that when they got that approval inspection for either footing or sheeting or framing, one of those, when they got an inspector to approve it, they thought that meant that it had come into code in all areas. If I am correct in thinking that, so it was an unintentional mistake that these inspections, as we've read in this document, are very specific to one area. And they took it to mean that the inspection approval was covering the whole structure.
Most comprehensive, okay.
And yet, so I don't believe there was any intention to, sneak one past the city. in my conversation with the homeowners, that they were caught off guard by the fact that that approved inspection was not including this variance.
Yeah,
So to clarify, there's no ill intent on their part as far as I can gather from the conversation. It doesn't change the fact that it has become a very much bigger problem now. And one that I don't know, we would be able to solve for them,
I don't, yeah,
the 7.5 feet. Now, is there any other, we did not put this as an action item on this meeting simply because we were waiting for such a large packet. There were 100 pages of documents in our packet on this, that I wanted there to be discussion so that if questions arise for you, we can ask the clerk to seek out more information, or we can give you a little more time to more thoroughly look at the documents in case you have other questions, rather than
I
acting on
think
them.
the issues are clear. I don't think more information is gonna do anything. We already have enough information. So, you know, I think the issues is, the vice chair had brought up, fairly succinctly, that's it. There's a problem with the statute, I think, and I think, and as he said, the bottom line is the school interest does not benefit in any way by giving up this land. And granted, it may be land we don't use or don't need right now, but the fact is, we have no interest in it. You know, anytime you have an agreement, it's gotta be a quid pro quo type thing. We don't get anything as much as they were kind enough to outline how they could turn that property into use and benefit the kids and stuff. But that's a short-term thing that may happen, or, you know, it's not something that long-term can really benefit the school. So without benefit to the school district, I think we just have to say we can't do it anymore.
Well, as I said, today we're not actually taking a vote on that, and we won't be deciding today, it's not.
I agree with you, Geraldine. I'm undecided on this issue.
And I would encourage you to look, you know, pretty thoroughly at the documents. And if questions arise that didn't sit out, I know no more information maybe needs to be discovered, but sometimes clarification helps in understanding what you're reading. You can also watch the video of the entire city council hearing, and that brings some clarity to the chain of events also.
Well, I wonder if there's any pressure we can bring to the city to the fact, they recommended that they come here, that we could be able to do something. And the fact that if we don't do anything, or can't do anything, it might be worth it at least letting them know that, you know, the only solution that we see at all has to be done by the city. And maybe they can reconsider the decision. I realize I went to the board, it wasn't a full board, it wasn't a full board.
Yeah.
And maybe they could reconsider.
I agree, I think it's something.
So are you asking, can we bring any pressure to bear?
Well, I mean, maybe write a letter from the board to the city, to the board, and just let them know what happened here, and the fact that we feel that if there's any resolution at all, it's gonna have to come from the city. And we realize they've already seen it once, but maybe they would reconsider. I just don't see anything else we can do.
I agree, I don't think that.
Well, in deference to Trustee Superger's request and the fact that it's not an action item, I'm going to let you have these documents for a while longer. It is a big packet, and we will have it most likely as an action item for our next meeting. So, and at that time, we can make that recommendation here.
Okay.
I am going to move on to the first reading of policy from our clerk.
Okay, sorry to do this to you guys,
Oh,
but
no.
there was a lot of policy in your packet. Very awesome reading over spring break. And since this is first reading, I will just start with the first policy that was in your packet. As you know, I'm working in the 4000 series. However, coming across policy 3545, student interviews, interrogations, or arrests. At the very end of this policy, it cross-references 3 policies that are unfortunately non-existent in your current board policy. So I'm bringing those 3 to you tonight as well. So within policy 3545, you will see some grammatical changes that we have updated. And when I say we, Tom Albertson, Superintendent Albertson, myself, our Director of Teaching and Learning, Andrew Murray, multiple people at the district level for each of these policies. Director of Facilities, Matt Deal, went over one of these, this facility policy that you'll see, and our human resource specialist as well. There have been many eyes on these policies because some are harder to digest, if I should just say that. So just starting with policy 3545.
Those were pretty straightforward changes.
Do you guys have any questions on that policy for what was presented?
No.
I did not, those seemed mostly grammatical. Yeah.
So moving on, just the next one in order, policy 4140, visitors to and conduct on school property. I'd like to change the title of that to visitors to the schools. There were some grammatical changes in this one, but you will see the majority of the back half of this policy is all struck. It is struck
It deals with the conduct.
because it actually deals with sex offenders, and that is a new policy that I'm bringing to you tonight as well. And encapsulating all of Idaho code in that individual policy of sex offenders. So if you didn't have any questions to that, this actually shortens this policy, and there's, you know, a couple of grammatical changes in this policy to add administration or principal's office in the second paragraph there. Very straightforward.
So wait, look back at the first part of the stricken, it's more generalized content that was stricken. It's before you get into the sex offender part. It starts right there.
Yes.
Where is that now being, because it's already
So all
in a
the
different
struck.
policy.
No. Sex offenders is policy 4420 that I'm bringing to you tonight. That is a new policy.
Right.
So all of this language is actually encompassed in new policy 4420 sex offenders.
But,
Including
yeah, but
loitering.
part of this is
Well,
general conduct, you know, smoking or tobacco products has nothing to do with whether you're a sex offender or not. So that was my only question, where is that first 10 bullet points right there
Oh,
at
sorry.
the top?
Did I get overzealous in striking?
So that
I could've,
first
I'm sorry.
section of striking is general conduct. And then it gets into,
Yep, and sex offender.
yeah,
So I think that was an oversight. I'm sorry.
unstrike that
I'll
conduct,
unstrike.
yeah. That's the first 10 bullet points, and that's general behavior.
Yep.
And then we start with the next section, which is all
Correct.
in the new. Okay,
So
okay, perfect,
I will unstrike that at second reading.
okay.
Any other questions?
No, the rest of the striking made perfect sense.
Okay, good catch, Geraldine. Okay, moving on to policy 4210. This is not in the norm of the other policies you'll see why, but this is community use of school facilities. And there was just a couple paragraphs for legality purposes to protect our school district. These were taken verbatim straight from model policy, from ISBA model policy. And this has been vetted with our director of facilities as well. And of course, I've updated some of the legal references in Idaho code on the bottom. You guys don't approve procedure, however, this procedure is completely new, and this procedure was developed specifically from the facility department. And if you had any questions on the procedure, Director Matt Deal is here, so he could answer any of those if you had them, but this is the procedure that we follow in our district and best practice.
Yeah, so this is what we're doing already.
Correct, correct. We just did not have a procedure.
I really want to call on Matt for something, but not right now,
He
Matt.
wants to
If you want
elucidate.
to call on me for something, call me when you're talking about the property at Washington Elementary.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be here at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so, moving on, policy 4400. This is a new policy that you're seeing, but also the one that was referenced in policy 3545. This is relations with law enforcement and child protective agencies. And this is new and does follow model policy. But this is our common practice right now. Was there anything glaring in that?
Short and sweet.
You had, nope.
Very direct. Okay.
Okay, so just moving on to policy 4410. This is also a new policy. It's investigations and arrests by police. Again, this follows model policy, and was referenced in policy 3545.
Did we get input from the sheriff on this? I know our resource officers are involved.
Yes, our school resource officers, I did not reach out to the sheriff's department on this, but I
But
did.
did they, I mean,
I can, before second reading.
well, I was just wondering why, I know the resource officers have, close contact with the sheriff or chief of police, whatever it happens to be. And as long as it's been coordinated with them, I mean, it reads fine, I'm sure we wouldn't have a problem with it.
There was nothing in here that I changed to fit our district
Okay.
per se. This was directly from model policy. Trustee Kelly and Chair Lewis, if you'd like me to reach out to the sheriff's department, but
I think if
we
you
did-
have accessed our resource officers,
Yep.
that this policy is
And
general
they're-
enough that it would encompass
And the
whatever.
sheriff and
Yeah.
the chief are aware of it, aware of what our policy is.
For sure, the city chief, yes. Not the sheriff's department that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, it would normally be the city that would be.
It would be the city that's.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
depending
well-
on what school.
Kind of what.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be
It's-
fine.
Sure.
I think it would be
Signal Southside
important
Court
to notify the sheriff's
Yeah, it'd be
department
the
because of the
sheriff.
outlying schools.
Yeah.
Think about high school and stuff.
So that's more a matter of sharing it after the fact rather than getting it put on the front end. And this is not detailed enough that it would be in any sort of conflict with what their
I wouldn't
standards
think
are.
so, no.
I will absolutely share it with both departments after adoption.
Okay.
Having been there through this with the sheriff's deputy at the school that I taught at, these are the procedures that were followed anyway. So I think
Yeah.
to let them know that we have a policy, I think is important.
Okay.
So this brings to the next policy, 4420, sex offenders. So this is what is fully encompassing what was struck in the visitors to school. Also including more detailed information to follow Idaho code. Of course, there's an immense amount of code to include sex offenders. Now, this sex offender policy did come with forms. I did reach out to multiple schools to ask them, because as unfortunate as these cases are, we do come across these issues in our schools. And to protect our schools and our administrators, Superintendent Albertson and the administrators that I talked to, they were very happy to have a form that protected them. So if we do have a registered sex offender coming to our schools to see their student perform, there are very strict procedures by code they must follow. And we were absent of something like that. And as in your policy, you saw in the form, and they have to check in with the administrator, the time in, the time out, who would observe them the whole time. And it just supports our administrators having this form. So you
Right.
adopt the policy, but of course, I wanted to include all documents that went along with it.
Right.
Did you guys have any questions?
So before, a lot of this content was in 3545, but not to this level of detail with this same code.
Correct.
Yeah.
We did not have a sex offender policy.
Yeah.
We did not have a sex offender policy or in the previous policy of the struck information that talked about sex offenders coming on school property
Visiting,
when
right.
when their parents or guardians of a student. And now this does negate, you know, a boyfriend or a girlfriend that is a registered sex offender. They are not the student's legal guardian or parent, and they would not be allowed on school property. This is for parents or legal guardians of students. So,
Yeah.
and that follows this code here.
I don't have any questions on the content that was in there. None? Okay.
Okay, so moving on, the last policy that you'll see in your packet is another new policy, 5260, abused and neglected child reporting. This is standard practice. This is what our administrators follow. This is in their administrative code of ethics as well. We just were absent a policy on it. As you can see, this policy is, the majority of it is quoted code. And again, just having something in our board policy, Superintendent Albertson and I absolutely feel like this is very
This is-
important to have, and it's referenced.
And
in
it's
the
another
adopted
case
policy.
of already what's being practiced,
Correct.
but now it's
Correct.
formalized in a policy.
Which I'm sure this is one that comes up.
Absolutely. And the very last page in this board policy packet is the form to this policy. And again, this fully supports our office in documenting these
Yeah.
cases and
Situation.
having something on file.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on this or any of the ones you heard from?
No,
Okay. Okay.
thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Work ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a question about the consent agenda.
Let's get
Sure.
a second on the floor.
Second.
A second consent. Any discussion? Trustee Super.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss the acquisition of school buses.
Okay, perfect.
I have the note here that says the school buses that we're acquiring, quote, meet or exceed the specifications outlined in the bid request. My question is, did that bid request include school buses outfitted with seat belts?
There was no sequence.
I'm sure.
I'm sure there was no, there's never,
I don't
can
know.
answer that, no.
Yeah,
yeah, no.
they were not included in the bid.
I'd just like to point out that the safety and security of our students is paramount to our mission, and I think seatbelts are proven, to save lives and injury. And seatbelts are available on school buses built in at the factory. A number of school districts in the state, including Coeur d'Alene, are now purchasing school buses with seatbelts. This current board, supported an ISB resolution at the ISBA convention for seatbelts on school buses. And I think this district should consider purchasing school buses fitted with seatbelts.
Well,
Gary, do you recall, last year when you brought this same issue up, we had,
we had the other issue up and it came
We had
back
our
to,
director of
Price.
transportation, James Taylor.
James came and he gave us a difference in quote. Do you recall it?
No.
He gave us some information on it. And at that time, we did not go with that plan deliberately.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing
well,
that.
there is a significant cost. That's one thing.
It was,
There's also, another issue was how are you gonna monitor whether kids have them on or not? Bus driver can't do it. You almost need to have somebody else on the bus that will do that. So we discussed the whole thing before, and when it went out to bid, we knew it was bid without the seatbelts because it was significant. Now, we can revisit the issue. I'm not saying we shouldn't do
right,
that.
that's what I was,
I don't remember seeing a number, but I did have a discussion with James, and he
Yeah.
explained to me that installing seatbelts on buses was a lot more than just putting seatbelts on seats, because the floor had to be reinforced, you know, to support the seats with the children fastened in them with the belts. And that was, and that added, you know, cost and weight to the buses. But I don't remember seeing a number of what that would cost. And he said it's not practical to add them. They have to be installed
right,
at the factory.
retrofitted, they need to come new. So, we have a motion on the floor to approve. Based on your discussion here, are you trying to amend the motion?
I wonder if we could just delete the school buses from the motion and get the numbers on what the buses fitted with the seatbelts would cost and approve that at another time?
Motion on the floor, so
We have a motion on the floor, so we have to, but no, I'm asking hold on, for a point of form. But you can move to amend the motion that's on the floor. And state and approve the amended motion in the middle of it. Yes?
Gary can amend, he can move to amend the motion,
So-
and it has to be seconded, then discussed.
Right, so there has to be a formal amendment to the motion that's on the floor, and if anybody wants to second it. And then we would take a vote on the amended motion. And then if that fails, we would vote on the original motion. I think I'm following Robert's Rules of Order, but I can't totally remember.
All right, well, I'd like to make the amended motion to withdraw the school bus request
From under the consent agenda.
from the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Taking that as a no, we are going to vote on the original motion that is still on the floor. So, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? Yeah, maybe here we'll take a roll call vote for the meeting minutes.
So roll call vote for the motion made to approve the consent agenda. Trustee Kelly.
Yes.
Trustee Superger.
Yes.
Trustee Decker.
Aye.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Chair Lewis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed.
Get some more information for our next. I'm going to now move to invite Principal Phil Kinnock up to discuss our Clark Fork Junior Senior High off-site prom request. I think you might have some,
I have some visitors with me.
I thought so, they might
It's
have
the
been
youngest
snoozing
one.
back there. They got lost in our motion and our discussion back
We only say yes.
But you're welcome back up, thank you.
Yes,
I appreciate that they're still here.
I know.
They
Hey,
paid
we're
the
not,
penalty.
we're only just now an hour.
All I'm going to do is introduce these two fine young people, Kaya Yannick and Cole Reuter, and I'm gonna let them take it. And their speech teacher's here watching very close.
Oh, and I know them both very well.
So we are here to ask for an offsite prom at Beyond Hope on May 28th. And the board has approved the offsite prom before, about 3 years ago, and it was very successful. Our COVID plan this year is to not mandate masks, but to recommend them. If you're sick, stay home. We will have hand sanitizer placed throughout the surroundings, and we will also take temperatures as students walk in.
Social
Do-
distance
Do
dancing.
you have the chaperone? Have the chaperones been designated yet?
I
Yes,
didn't, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Were the chaperones designated yet?
Yes, we have 2 chaperones right there.
They're right
You know what,
Okay.
Gary?
Anything wrong with the volunteers? Sometimes they have
You
bad
available?
influence.
Is there any other, why don't you guys touch on the financial considerations for us?
Consideration? Is that like fundraisers?
That's how much they were charging, but they're charging us this much in the end.
Oh, I'm pretty sure when I called them, they said that they were, I think it was 3,200 or 30.
It
or
was
20.
like, what was it, 3,000?
It was like 3,200.
Yeah.
3,300, and they dropped the price for us to about $320.
That's a significant. You guys can do business.
You guys
with
should
me.
negotiate. We got some buses we need to buy.
I will say Beyond Hope supports the schools out there. Yes.
Okay. Well, we can put you out of your cane, and I would hear emotion. I'm pretty sure I know. But
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this request for the off-site prom for the Clark Fork High School.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
You're
Thank
good
you.
to go.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Go find a date.
There you go.
Okay.
Are there any announcements from administration? Oh. Skip. Sorry, that was. Yes, so we do have one more board item for discussion. COVID discussion. Sorry, I can't believe I blacked that out. But from Superintendent Albertson, there was a couple things to note since our last school board meeting. Just to note, the Panhandle Health District Board removed their county mask mandate on Thursday, March 28th. And the legislatures are discussing House Bill 339A, which would prevent school districts from requiring face coverings. So the amended bill passed in the House and has been sent to the Senate. I think that's still the status as of this evening.
Correct.
But obviously, it's been a topic of discussion at many school boards. And Tom notes that Boundary County has moved in this direction. Lakeland has always been categorized as recommended. And Coeur d'Alene School Board is discussing the same issue later this week. So this is not unique to us, obviously. I think all of us here know that. But those were just some points that our superintendent wanted to share. And then we have some updates from our clerk on the data.
So Superintendent Albertson asked that I share this information with you. He shares it every board meeting. So our current school data is that we have 0 active cases in our district. We did end spring break with 2 active cases, so just for a point of reference there. At the county level, we have currently 190 active cases in our county.
Kelly, can I ask
Yep.
a question? Oh,
Yes.
this will be the previous slide.
Yep.
7-day average. What does that say, 9.7?
It's 9.7 as of today, but this hasn't been updated. That's inaccurate,
Oh, that's
actually.
from data from
That's-
a week ago, or 2
No,
weeks ago.
not
Well,
even 2 weeks ago, no, that's just from data from Friday when Tom was stepping out of the office and provided this to Kelly, I think.
No. This was just updated this morning from our school nurse, so she pulls it off of what I'm gonna show you.
Oh,
But due to the time of day, it's already been updated from the state.
oh, okay.
So this information is
This is
Here?
from 410, that's what I was referencing.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
So as of today, April 13th, our daily 7-day moving average incident rate is 11.9.
Okay.
So we are seeing, oh, sorry, that just kicked this out. Sorry about that. So this is our state. Our state is currently at 13.5 for that 7-day moving average. And then our county here is at
down at
11.9. And then moving on, this is as of April 3rd. As you know, this includes everybody getting tested, including those for standard procedures, medical procedures, or not standard. And we are currently at, well, as of April 3rd, our percent of positive test results is 4.1%. And of course, that lags about a week. So I'll turn it back over to Chair Lewis.
Well, it's encouraging that in our schools, we don't have any active cases right now as we are here.
So I have a question.
Yes,
Spring break just ended yesterday, right?
Our first day back was yesterday.
yes.
So you said we started post-spring break with 2, and then 1 day later we're at 0?
No. Before spring break, when the kids left the last day of school, we had 2.
2,
Correct.
okay.
Now we have 0, both of those. And both of those have cleared and no new ones have come forward. Are there any other COVID questions? Yes.
I have a comment. I know that everybody's in the same boat and getting a lot of information
Yep.
brought to our attention. I want to recognize the fact that we are receiving those emails and phone calls, and we absolutely do look at the data and what people bring to our attention. We are making decisions as a board based on the best set of facts that we have and what we think is best for our community, and that's the decision that we made 2 weeks ago. But I welcome and encourage an open line of communication to anybody in our community who wishes to speak to us through the proper channels with the proper decorum and respect that we all deserve.
We did. We heard from a lot of educators, and it was very helpful and,
Medical doctors.
some unhappy and some happy. It's not been, none of these decisions are made lightly, and I know that it was,
They're also not made over, it's not a snap decision either. We've been discussing this for a very long time, so.
I did encourage everybody who reached out to me to come if they needed to speak.
Absolutely.
So we may yet hear from people, but at this time, that's what we have for the meeting. Wait, am I safe to say we can move to announcements? Okay. Any administrators, principals, anyone who would like to make their, anything from Andrea? Oh, Bill
I have an
has
awesome
an
one.
announcement.
Yet another reason for our district to be proud. I just got our accreditation report back. We went through accreditation at the beginning of February, and the report was just returned. And it's the IEQ Index of Educational Quality. The 5-year rolling average on the from the parent company is 278 to 283. Clark Fork this year once again scored pretty high at 349.5. So something to be very proud of.
Anything else
the floor for a while already tonight.
Great information. And
Happy
we'll
to be
stay-
day 2 back from break, so thank you very much for all your
Yeah.
support.
Absolutely.
We'll look forward to the formal greeting of
I-
TJ Clary at a future meeting.
I was just going to say. That's there. Okay, excellent. Okay, well, with that, meeting adjourned.